Welcome back to America First, Patriots. I'm here today to break down some absolutely critical testimony that every American needs to hear. Before we dive into this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because we're bringing you the unfiltered truth that the mainstream media won't tell you about our national security.
The administration has largely succeeded in refocusing the Pentagon on warfighting. Our recruitment numbers have dramatically improved. That is a very important achievement and one we will continue to celebrate. The U.S. military has played a significant supporting role in the President's wholesale success at our southern border. He has achieved operational control over the situation, a position the vast majority of Americans support. In Operation Rough Rider, the President imposed costs on the Houthis. The operation was well executed by our service members, and it appears to have achieved its stated objectives for now. Similarly, the President has relentlessly struck al-Qaeda and ISIS terrorists. Those strikes have helped to open up space for diplomatic breakthroughs in Syria, and they have prevented significant external attacks that could have emanated from Somalia. Unfortunately, the axis of aggressors is resilient. It is hell-bent on challenging American global leadership. It is clearer than ever that Vladimir Putin is uninterested in President Trump's and President Zelensky's offers for real peace negotiations. The Europeans are heeding the President's call to rearm, but we are in a tenuous period. A precipitate withdrawal of U.S. forces from Europe could undo all that progress. In Asia, the Chinese Communist Party continues its campaign of aggression against its neighbors and still displays open ambitions to retake Taiwan. Secretary Hegseth recently made this crucial point in an important speech in Shangri-La. He said, and I quote, "China seeks to become a hegemonic power in Asia," unquote. He is right. China intends to use military force to achieve Xi Jinping's goals. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the Ayatollah is hiding as his regime crumbles. He is still refusing to negotiate. In short, this is the most dangerous national security moment since World War II. Unconstrained, aggressive dictators are on the move. And importantly, the character of warfare is rapidly changing. That is a dangerous combination. We cannot have an American-led golden age of peace and prosperity if we fail to navigate these historic security challenges. President Trump is actively working to protect American interests against four main adversaries: Xi Jinping and his Chinese Communist Party, Vladimir Putin's militarized Russia, Kim Jong-un's North Korea, and the Ayatollah's religious fanatics, including his web of terrorists. Our Commander-in-Chief deserves a military capable of maintaining deterrence and applying force when necessary to protect U.S. interests, as he has done in Yemen. I regret to say that this fiscal year 2026 budget request will not deliver that military. When Secretary Hegseth testified before this committee in his confirmation hearing, he made the correct point that spending less than 3% of GDP on defense would be, and I quote, "very dangerous," unquote. What we have in front of us is an inadequate budget request with precious little detail and no follow-on data about fiscal years 2027, 2028, or 2029. We must assume, and in fact, we have heard, that OMB intends to maintain defense spending at $893 billion across the 4 years of this administration. So even with a one-time $150 billion reconciliation infusion, this would leave us at 2.65% of GDP by 2029, below 3% of GDP and well below the 5% of GDP that we really, really need. Clearly, such a budget plan would allow the military balance to continue, as it has been, to tilt away from the United States and toward Communist China. Communist China has increased its budget by over 7% each year for the past decade. I know the Secretary fought for a stronger fiscal year 2026 discretionary request, but we need to acknowledge that a flat fiscal year 2026 budget is what OMB delivered. I expect we will spend today reviewing the numerous significant holes in this request, gaps that will make it much more difficult for President Trump to equip our service members and for his advisors to develop credible military options. Across the budget, we see significant holes: shipbuilding, tactical fighters, basic maintenance money, and more, all insufficient. The budget seems to be written as if there are many items in the reconciliation package that simply are not in that bill. This is confusing because the text of the reconciliation bill has been public for quite some time. Chairman Rogers of the House and I worked closely with the executive branch and members of this committee on the contents of the package. This budget threatens to undermine the good work we have done together on that bill and leads me to question whether some officials in the administration plan to ignore congressional intent. I believe ignoring congressional intent would be a wrong-headed decision for the United States of America. We all work for the American people, and we share largely identical goals when it comes to deterring Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and other threats. We need to work much more closely together on investment strategies and actions necessary to rebuild our industrial base. The President and the Congress want action on reindustrialization. We want to rebuild the arsenal of democracy. We need action on industrial base integration, streamlined weapon sales, and cooperation with our allies and partners. We agree on fundamentally changing the way the DoD budgets and handles acquisition. Now we need to agree on providing the men and women of the Department of Defense with the resources they need to do their jobs. We have no time to waste. We must commit to continued collaboration now. With that,
What we just witnessed in this congressional testimony is both encouraging and deeply troubling at the same time. Let me walk you through what's really happening with our military and why this matters for every American family. First, let's talk about the wins. The Trump administration has successfully refocused our Pentagon on what it should be doing: war fighting. For too long, our military was distracted by social experiments and woke ideology. Now we're seeing dramatic improvements in recruitment numbers, which tells us that patriotic Americans want to serve again when they see a commander-in-chief who actually supports them and understands their mission. The fact that our military helped achieve operational control at our southern border is exactly what we voted for. This is America First policy in action. We have the most powerful military in the world, and it's about time we use it to protect our own borders first before we worry about borders halfway around the globe. Operation Rough Rider against the Houthis shows that President Trump understands how to use American military power effectively. Quick, decisive action that achieves objectives without getting us bogged down in endless conflicts. This is how you project strength without unnecessary escalation. The continued strikes against Al-Qaeda and ISIS terrorists are keeping America safe. When we eliminate these threats overseas, we prevent attacks on American soil. This isn't nation building. This is targeted elimination of enemies who want to kill Americans. Now here's where things get concerning, and this is where every American needs to pay attention. We are facing what this testimony correctly identifies as the most dangerous national security moment since World War II. We have 4 major adversaries actively working against American interests, and they're not playing games. Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party are building their military at over 7% growth every year for the past decade, while they openly plan to dominate Asia and take Taiwan. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin continues his aggression despite President Trump's diplomatic efforts. Kim Jong-un remains a nuclear threat, and Iran's regime continues funding terrorism across the Middle East. This is a harsh reality that America First patriots understand. We want peace, But peace comes through strength, not through weakness or appeasement. When America is strong, our enemies think twice before challenging U.S. When we appear weak, they see opportunity. Here's what really concerns me about this testimony. The witness is telling us that the fiscal year 2026 defense budget is completely inadequate. We're talking about spending less than 3% of GDP on defense, when we actually need 5% to maintain our military superiority. This is unacceptable when we're facing the most dangerous threats since World War II. The math is simple, patriots. China is increasing their military spending by over 7% every year. If we're keeping our defense spending flat, we're falling behind. This isn't just about dollars and cents. This is about whether American servicemen and women have equipment and resources they need to win fights and come home safely. The witness mentioned significant holes in shipbuilding, tactical fighters, and basic maintenance funding. This is exactly the kind of military readiness crisis that happens when Washington politicians treat defense spending like it's optional. Our enemies don't take budget holidays, and neither should we. What really gets me fired up is hearing about the disconnect between what Congress authorized and what the administration is requesting. When Congress and the executive branch aren't working together on defense priorities, it's the American people who suffer. We need seamless cooperation between all branches of government when it comes to national security. The call for reindustrialization and rebuilding the arsenal of democracy is music to my ears. For decades, we allowed our defense industrial base to atrophy while we ship manufacturing overseas. America first means making things in America again, especially the weapons and equipment our military needs to keep us safe. We need streamlined weapons cooperation with our allies, but we also need to make sure America isn't carrying the entire burden. European nations are finally starting to rearm, as this testimony mentions, but we can't let them off the hook. They need to spend their fair share on defense instead of relying on American taxpayers to subsidize their security. The warning about a precipitant withdrawal from Europe is worth considering. America first doesn't mean America alone. We need strategic partnerships. But we need partnerships where our allies actually contribute their fair share. We can maintain American leadership without being the world's policeman. Here's what every American needs to understand from this testimony. We're in a race against time. Our adversaries are moving aggressively. The character of warfare is changing rapidly, and we cannot afford to fall behind in military capabilities. This isn't fear-mongering. This is reality. The witness correctly stated that we cannot have an American golden age of peace and prosperity if we fail to navigate these historic security challenges. This is a fundamental truth that America First conservatives understand. Economic prosperity and military strength go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. What we need now is sustained commitment to rebuilding American military superiority. This means adequate funding, smart procurement policies, domestic manufacturing of critical defense components, and unwavering support for our service members. We need to stop treating defense spending like it's a political football and start treating it like the national security imperative it is. The testimony mentions that unconstrained aggressive dictators are on the move. This is exactly why America needs to project strength from a position of military superiority. When dictators see American weakness, they act. When they see American strength, they hesitate. It's that simple. Patriots, this testimony should be a wake-up call for every American who cares about our national security. We have the best military in the world, but maintaining that superiority requires constant investment and unwavering commitment. We cannot allow budget constraints to undermine the safety and security of the American people. The choice is clear. We can invest in American military strength now, or we can pay a much higher price later, when our enemies feel emboldened to challenge us directly. History shows us that weakness invites aggression, while strength preserves peace. This is why your voice matters, patriots. Contact your representatives and demand adequate defense funding. Demand accountability in defense spending. Demand that America maintains its military superiority over our adversaries. The safety of our families and the future of our republic depend on it. Make sure you like this video if you agree that America must maintain military superiority. And subscribe to America First for more unfiltered analysis of the issues that matter most to patriotic Americans. We'll keep bringing you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you, because informed patriots are what make America great.